And welcome back to another episode of Psychic Evolution. I'm Jamie Clark.
And I'm Maggie Clark, and this is the podcast where you discover the psychic potential within to empower yourself and manifest your psychic and mediumship gifts. And oh, guys, we are super, ooper, duper excited today to bring on Roberto Roja with The Mystic Drop. Now, The Mystic Drop is on YouTube. You can find it. This is a show featuring interviews, discussions, and wicked conversations with UFO researchers, experiencers, contactees, mediums, spiritual mystics, healers, conspiracy theorists, shamans, truth warriors, artists, and poetic outlaws. Everything that we love at Psychic Evolution. Now, Robbie had us on his show on the Mystic Drop on a YouTube channel, so we'll have a link in the show notes so you can check it out. You can check out his channel. Amazing. But we brought Robbie on because we cannot launch season 8 without talking about the current UFO disclosures in the Congress of the United States of America. So we brought Robbie on to help us break it down. What was disclosed during those hearings, what was talked about, what was presented, what was discussed, and how it's going to shift and change the consciousness of our relationship, not only to this planet, to the earth, and to all sentient creatures and beings that are here, but also to our galactic and intergalactic brothers and sisters. So we want to say thank you so much for joining us today, Robbie. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you on Psychic Evolution.
Maggie and Jamie, thank you so much. And I just want to start off with, this is a real honor. Salud to you both.
Salud.
Cheers.
Since having you on the show and even before that, discovering you both and what you're about, and you just have beautiful souls. And I'm honored to be not only a part of this podcast. Actually, this is my first invitation on a podcast. And I'm just so grateful and honored to be here. And not only on this podcast, but to be alive in these history-changing times with you both.
Thank you. And
everyone else in the spiritual... Everyone else in the spiritual community and UFO community.
Yeah, and I think this is bringing everyone together. It's losing the separation and starting to realize, oh, maybe it was more connected than what we thought. And I love that because that's going to me, that's going to blend a lot of different aspects, different perspectives to go, oh, it was just a different way of seeing this same thing. Oh, so now they're going to be able to hold that value to go, okay, we're intergalactic brothers and sisters to everyone else. We're extraterrestrials to everyone else. It's very relative. And then now being able to be open to go, oh, we've always been our cosmic beings. We just didn't realize until we started seeing it this way. Now we're ready to start traveling the stars. Now we're ready to start expanding and finding more of ourselves within life. And that kind of a connection, I think, like I do, a lot of us may have had experiences that maybe we did not share a lot with. And now it's going to be a little bit more solid and open and receptive for people to go, okay, so what happened? Because that information is coming that apparently we didn't realize. We thought we were alone, and now we're realizing apparently there's more than just us. Okay, so I wonder what their perspective is. I wonder what their technology is, because that's going to start to bring everything together in a beautiful way. And spiritually, the unification of consciousness, man. What do you see for humanity as we move along?
I see... since this whole UFO subject has been coming out into the greater public, there's a lot of talk out there of it's all negative. It's all a black ops operation by the government to control, and create a one world government and all this sort of stuff. But I'm very hopeful. I see this as, because as we were talking before the show, Jamie and Maggie, you said that if these beings wanted to, they could turn us into dog food. They could just completely obliterate this earth and everything in it. And it hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened. I believe that this has been going on since the beginning of our existence. And I think that these beings... And before. On other worlds, I think that in other universes, other dimensions, this is a process that's been happening. And it's been going on since the beginning of our existence and before. And I feel now we're about to meet our brothers and sisters in the cosmos.
Which is going to shift a lot of things, and certain ways of being seen for many, many years are now at the crux of change. To go, well, we apparently have no choice but to go, oh, so maybe there was more than what we were perceiving from this particular viewpoint. Now they're going to start to become a little bit more open for some of the other belief systems, spiritual aspects. However we want to connect with, now people are going to start to open up to life.
Well, you look at even the mainstream media, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, even before that, if they did a news story on the UFO subject, they would always enter in with the X-Files music and, goofy little things in the background that they would do to play to the audience, to say this is not an important subject, don't worry, go back to work, pay your taxes and all this stuff. But now, since the congressional hearings that have been happening recently, they're taking it seriously. This belongs not just in the mainstream media, not just in the governments. This belongs in universities, where our philosophers and wisdom keepers of our planet can discuss openly without looking like clowns.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, we really want to break down the highlights of the UFO disclosures for Congress. So can you give us like a brief rundown of the best, meatiest, juiciest parts of that?
Okay. So what's been happening the last couple of years since 2017, we've had a few congressional hearings in your country, in America, but these have been with Congress interviewing bureaucrats that are just giving, non-specific answers. We're not getting much information. It's as business as usual. What has happened in the last 3 weeks is that we've had a whistleblower come out by the name of David Grush. Now, I just want to say that David Grush will go down in history as a huge hero in this subject. Not just in the subject, but for humanity. To come out and say what he said. And what he said is that we are not alone. There has been crash retrievals. He has hinted at Roswell being one of them, which is huge. Everyone knows about Roswell. And that there are non-human intelligences and bodies being recovered. That in itself is history changing for our planet. And yet we see the mainstream media, going about their business, touching on it, but not touching on those specific issues. Even people within the UFO community and even friends of mine who are very spiritual don't even know what's been happening with David Grush, which shows the power of mainstream media. I've said it recently. I said, if the mainstream media treated the UFO subject, what's been happening, like they did with COVID, disclosure would be happening today.
Absolutely, right? Because they pushed it down everyone's throats, and that was a global push.
Fear's a big motivator and demotivator.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like you have something saying, okay, someone is under oath telling a truth because they are not allowed to lie and admitting all these things that we've known for decades, that there has been recovered bodies and recovered craft and reverse engineering in our own government and all the things we know these things. Everybody who is into aliens and watches Ancient Aliens, everybody knows these things. Yet now a person of authority who has seen it and been there and witness things is actually under oath saying those things. So if you think about the levity and the gravity of that, it's huge. How does this shift anything? Like, will it shift anything consciously? Is it just the beginning boulder that's rolling down a hill?
Well, there's a numbness to this, I think. Like the people that I've spoken to that are not really into the spiritual community or UFO community, they're just like, and I have to pay my taxes and all this. So I think that disclosure is not a one-time event. I think it's been going on for quite a few decades. And I think Hollywood has had a big hand in that with all the ET stuff, UFO stuff. all the series, all the movies dealing with this subject, Superman, the comics. And this is subconsciously, it's gotten into the people's mind that yeah, we're okay with it. The, if there are other beings out there and they're here, yeah, so what? I still have to pay my taxes, still have to go to work.
Yeah, right. And then what does it mean consciously, though, when you know that there is sentient life that could blow you out of the water, even on a consciousness, even on an energetic level? Like, it's huge, right?
This subject changes the world. It changes our not just on a physical and technological stage. This completely shifts our consciousness, our spirit, and it goes to who we are. Because I've said for a while now, and this is going back to the great Bob Dean of what he says. This subject is not about the non-human intelligence's bodies, their biologics, the technology that they have. This comes back to who we are and where we've come from. And when the truth comes out about that, when people realize that, hey, evolution is just a theory and it's proved wrong of who we are and where we've come from, that's going to completely shift everything.
And now beginning to see where we're heading, what this potential can mean for us with the technology. For many years, I was receiving information and I was making a prediction, because we're psychic, everyone is. But in 2023 would be the solid acclamation of acknowledgement that we're not alone. And it's kind of rolling in. So I'm very curious to see, because I have a lot of other insight about other dynamics of potential that are coming up that are even more powerful than this experience that's being experienced by humanity. You know, and I think that that's going to bring up an aspect of technology and receptiveness to go, well, wait a minute. Oh, so that I saw that as magic. Now I'm starting to see, technology is able to see what my, in this case, limited awareness was of the technology. It's way beyond that. Because just for me, my awareness is not only do they have ships that are the size of stadiums, they literally have ships the size of planets. It is I don't know how they do it. I don't know the technology, but it is impressive.
And I know you've been dealing with this, Jamie, the soul phone.
Correct. Yep.
Yes. So
science and spirituality, physics.
I've always wondered that we've got an idea of where spirituality and technology can go. But I wonder where these races that have been interacting with us, what do they know? What is their idea of the spirit realm? It must be way more advanced than in our brain, what we can comprehend.
Well, and being in that capacity as a medium, and again, everyone can do it, but I always say I never, ever talk to the dead. There are none. As we perceive death, right, we die in this dimension and then we go to the other side after this. And my thing is that I always share, one, everything's spiritual. Two, life is relative, because we as humans are extraterrestrials to everyone else. And aren't we right now living on the other side of where we come from before here? Isn't that when we must have died? Or could it just be a shift in consciousness and vibrational patterns of energy? And when we realize that we are eternal beings, those things of scientific methodology is what I'm loving, because I'm not a doctor, a scientist, but they've found that humans are basically energy, vibrational light beings. And with that definition of being energy in quantum physics, they found that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. But I said, but wait a minute. That means in a very scientific, quantifiable way that we are eternal. We have always been. And yet they perceive this universe has only been here 14.8 billion years. We may not be from this universe. I'll guarantee you we are not originally from this universe. And it is amazing. The more I know, the more I know. I don't know nothing, man. But I'll share my perspective. It's really, I love learning about all of this. And kind of getting into that information has been there. What if that entertainment industry has been acclimating humanity? Keep it entertaining and informative. Because the next step will be in that movie called The Matrix.
Yes.
Watch.
Well, one of my favorite shows, I don't know if you guys have seen it, is Ancient Aliens. When I first got my hooks into that, it completely blew away my paradigm, because it does. It goes into the fact that that these beings might have had a hand in our being here,
In our evolution.
in our
Yep.
evolution. I think that we are a hybrid race, that we have.
Yes.
And that's why there are so many people that believe there are star seeds here that have come from these different constellations and
We are.
incarnated into this human form to uplift this planet. I 100% believe that.
And from the inside out. Now
Yes.
it's the self-empowerment and realization of humanity to go, oh, we're now beginning to see things differently and our place in the universe.
Yeah.
With the soul phone, and we're connected with our loved ones who are on the other side, which is right here, right now. What about other extraterrestrial? What about other dimensions, frequencies? What about other universes? It's going to unify. And kind of like our brothers and sisters, it's shifting human consciousness to go, whoa, that's the next level. We didn't even know that was possible. I'm like, yeah, until it is now. And having the guts to be able to go in this avenue, one, because I was sure this is not only what I do, it's who I am. I don't know how to be anything different. And our life experiences are now being able to, we're giving ourselves more value to go, maybe I wasn't just making stuff up or all of that. Maybe there's something to this. So people are finding their own inner space astronaut journey and discovering who they truly are, which is everything. It is all interconnected. I'm starting to see more people being activated with their intuitive abilities, because that kind of a connection is we're going to start to realize that all of these other dimensions have their own vibratory rate. They're all just as solid as this one. And oh yeah, nothing's solid. It's all vibrations, light, energy, and frequencies. So when they can get the build upon little by little, it's a little bit easier to go, okay, I'm okay with that. Is there something else? Okay. Because otherwise, if you take them too quickly, they're going to freak out. So that's why I feel it's been the acclamation of humanity through not only the entertainment, but many other avenues, many other experiences in our own individualized experiences, that now we start to, well, maybe I can search this out a little bit more. Maybe I want to understand more about what I did experience, because it was kind of freaky deaky. And, depending on who the beings are that you're connecting with, that can really shift things in the way that you see that particular experience. Are you able to share any experiences that maybe you've had that we could help others to realize, okay, there are so many different people in so many different ways experiencing?
Well, I've never shared this publicly. This will be the first time on your show. So ever since I was a kid, around Christmas time, because in Australia you can see the Pleiades. I didn't know as a kid that it was called the Pleiades. And you could see clearly in the night sky in that time of year, the star system. They call it the Seven Sisters. I remember as a kid, I just used to, every Christmas, I used to look up and I just was so drawn to this star cluster. It just fascinated me. There was something within me, within my spirit, that was connected to this star cluster. Anyway, years went by and I started, because as you do, you leave school and you learn so much more about what the world is and the universe and everything that's connected. I discovered that not only that there are planets within this star system, but there are beings as well that have come to Earth over millennia, interacting with humanity, teaching us, evolving us. And not only that, when I was young, my perspective of what aliens were the typical grey alien with the big black eyes. And I thought, that's it. Aliens across the board, that's how they look like. When I discovered that there are a group of beings that look exactly like we do, that they can sit next to you in a restaurant or in a bowling alley or in a movie theater, eating popcorn, having conversations with these people, and you would never know. This completely shifted my entire being to the fact that they were from the Pleiades as well. There was one time I came back from Europe. I went back in and started living at home. Now, throughout my teenage years, I was having interactions with dimensional beings as well. Waking up in the middle of the night and there's these gorgeous women by my bedside, and they would draw me in, and the feeling that I got was this like intense that I've never felt physically, It was a spiritual
But no
energy.
fear.
No fear. It was a complete sexual energy that these beings were like drawing me into their world. But as I approached them, like they just completely disappeared. And I'd shake myself and go, "Was that real?" And then I had an encounter where this is a separate. I'm gonna come back to the Pleiadian thing. So this is all. This is I think this experience that I had was a lead up to the Pleiadian encounter that I had,
See how you can begin to interweave your past to go,
and how it's all
maybe.
connected.
Yes.
And I just
that's
recently
excellent.
connected all this. So this is my first, as I said, this is my first time relaying it.
Beautiful.
I came back from Europe, and one of my actual best friend, more than a best friend, I think I feel that we've had lives together, me and this guy, and we had a wild night out drinking. We came back and passed out. I was on the bed, he was on the mattress on the floor. I had woken up after going to sleep, and I saw a beautiful with long flowing hair next to me, dark. I turned around. In between me and my friend, there were two other women, long flowing hair, one blonde and one redhead. I've been experienced this over the years, so I was used to it. So I went back to sleep.
You know.
So I was like, hey, it is what it is. Not even a minute later, I hear him jump out of bed, like heavy breathing, and I turn around and I see his silhouette, and I didn't say anything, and all he said to me was, "Where are they?" As soon as he said that, I didn't say anything. I just turned around and went back to sleep. Next morning, we wake up, and he goes, "Man," because we had a wild night, you know. He goes, "Man, I had this dream," and I said, "Stop. You saw the women." And in that moment, his face just went white. He grabbed his stuff and ran straight out of the house. He was freaked. He was, till this day, he can't, he doesn't want to even talk about it. But for me, that was validation that it's
You're not
not just
making
in my
crap
head.
up.
I'm not making crap up.
Right.
Somebody else has seen what I've experienced. Okay, so that's
Yes.
that story. So I think that these
Excellent.
beings got me to a point, because this happened, my Pleiadian experience happened, no, I think it was a month or two after this, that happened with my friend. And again, I was in bed, and I woke up, because when it happens, it's like this daze.
What if they're getting you connected multidimensionality from the sleep state into the wake state as we perceive it, now blending realities of unification?
And that's what it's always felt like. It's like I'm awake, but it's very hazy, and I know I'm awake. I know I'm awake. I know I'm not dreaming. This incident lasted in its entirety for about, I reckon, 7 to 8 seconds. It happened. So I woke up. The wall that's beside me completely opened up, so I could see outside.
Nice.
There was a window in front of me, and that too opened up. So the wall that's in front of me with the window, the wall that's beside me, opened up. And what I saw was part of a beam ship that was coming from the outside, and just from the wall in front of me, the outside of that window,
Look at
and
this shit in one
hovering outside of the house in the air, just in front of the beam ship, was one of the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. Long flowing blonde hair, eyes that shine like diamonds, and just hovering in the air and she was wearing a tight skinned, it was like a shining dark blue, skin tight.
Did they
one
ever
piece.
share their name?
No, it was just, as I said, it was like 7 seconds flash, and then everything just went back to normal. The wall came back, the window came back. It was,
You see,
but the thing that got me was her expression. Her It was full of love, and it was like a salute, like you're on the right
and
path.
honoring. Yes.
And in that moment, everything came together for me.
How did it feel to not
To know
put all
that
those pieces together?
everything that I experienced since I was a child, all the spiritual, all the dimensional stuff, led to that moment. And since
Yeah.
then, nothing like that has ever happened again.
It already acclimated you. You're ready. It's
Yeah,
like, okay, you don't need a bunch of other experiences. I
yeah.
share the fact that along the lines of that, many years ago, I was awakened. I was staying at another person's house, and I was awakened. It was nighttime, whenever it was, and I was compelled to go out to the backyard. Well, as I looked out the window before I walked out the door, there's a big tree here, and up above the tree is this bright light ship. I'm like, what the? And so there's this stairway as we perceive it that's down on the ground. I walked out to the back. I stepped one step onto that staircase and it became an escalator. I'm like, oh my God, that's freaking wild. And so as I got up, I'm looking around at the houses. Everything was lit. This was a brilliant light, yet no dogs were barking. It was like it was a freaking vacuum. And I'm like, how is this even possible? So there was a next door neighbor, and I hadn't been to this place. I hadn't seen that other next door neighbor's backyard. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to stop. I'm going to look at that other backyard and I'm going to see if there's any kind of a reference that when I wake up from this dream, whatever it is, okay. And so I continued. I walked in after I looked at the backyard. And as I stepped into the ship, there's this little wall there. And out from the wall slides this bench. It just came right out. As soon as I turned around to sit down, I woke up the next morning. Wow. I'm like, holy crap. I got up. I looked over the fence at the backyard. It was all there. I'm like, oh, and it was a Pleiadian vibe. It
Wow.
was that
See?
kind of
Okay.
blonde hair, and yeah, they look like Nordics on some of those. And there are a number of human-looking beings that have been here. Venus, many other worlds. We're just going to now get into our galactic, in this case, our solar system neighbors, to go, oh, there's more than, oh, so then we'll start planet tripping because it becomes a little bit easier and more fun because now you're understanding it and less fear and more empowerment kind of thing. And then we go cosmically galactic and then intergalactic. Then going beyond that into the other universes. But like it has to be a step stage of evolution because if you shift that consciousness too much, they will feel like my whole reality just broke. What the? It's not about the fear. It's about the empowerment to go, oh, there's so much more. Notice you've been allowed to perceive things the way that you are now. We're just going to take it to the next step.
Our fragile human psyches, how do we actually handle that level of consciousness?
Yes.
And it really is these interdimensional beings, and whether we call them extraterrestrials or aliens, or I like all the language for it.
Yeah.
It's
Whatever
interchangeable
label.
to me.
Whatever the label.
They relate on a very consciousness level where they're like, look, this wall can disappear, this window can disappear, you could disappear, you could go travel somewhere in an instant. And so again, this little moment of time with UFO disclosures, all it means is that we're ready to grow and
Bridge
expand
consciousness.
consciously.
Yes.
And that they're coming. They are making contact with
here.
so
Well-
many people all the time.
Well, this is the next step because once disclosure happens, then comes contact, open contact. And I believe that there was a time in our past that we had open contact, and there was this beautiful exchange of a deep relationship that we had with these beings. And for some reason, it all disappeared. In the times of Atlantis and the Egyptians and the Mayans and ancient Sumeria, there's all these stories in Africa. I think the Aboriginals had a deep relationship with them as well, and it was all taken away. And I believe that something within us, our DNA was switched off because I think we did have those superhuman capabilities back then to move those megalithic stones the way that they did and put them in place. It wasn't
And
all
as we're
just
getting
it
back
wasn't
into
all just
this,
the aliens.
as we're getting back into it, what if it's going to flip the switch back on?
I hope
What
so.
if that DNA reconstruction is the unification of consciousness that will shift those paradigms, those different ways of thinking and seeing and experiencing? And when we can question everything, get the practicality of this stuff, and then build from there, because it's now going to be a lot more powerful for people to go, okay, so there is more to it than this, and maybe my life has more meaning than what I thought it did, because it's going to give people a lot of self-awareness and value of their own life experience to go, oh, this is just one of a myriad of infinite experiences. I'm just consciously connected with this particular reality as we perceive it. That's why our brothers and sisters have been very patient with us to go, hey, we're here the whole time. We don't want to freak you out too much, so we'll be those lights in the sky that looks like little stars, and then, buzz, 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 and then that's from time forgetting stuff, and hey, we're going to visit you in your dreams, because all it is just the astrals, just a different channel. So you're more receptive on that one, so we're going to come in, because the average person in the dream state is like, yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, this is a dream. Anything's Exactly. Everything is possible. Can we open up to that possibility and learn to integrate it into our reality in a new way? Not slipped out to go, oh my God, I don't understand it. It's like, let's get the value of awareness. And they're willing to share, a lot of them, because it's not just one species. There are many beings and worlds that have come to partake in this aspect.
And just sitting here, the three of us, we've all experienced at least 3 different encounters with so 3 different, species. With my experiences with aliens, when they visited me, when I've had conscious connections, whether it's in a dream state, a waking state, for me, it's like you said, you're awake when you're having these. It is to integrate and to activate. And I do believe, yes, we have latent DNA. Some people call it junk DNA that hasn't necessarily been activated within us. And this is part of our human potential, because we all 3 agree that we are created from alien DNA. We are hybrid species on this planet. We've been seeded here to actually figure out what humanity is going to do. Now we have an opportunity consciously, as we're expanding and growing and spiritually evolving out of the darkness of 2,000 years and the patriarchy and all the crap we had to put up with. Thank God that's changing. Once we actually learn to vibrate again in a place of love, in a place of consciousness, and a place of, oh my gosh, I feel safe here, then humanity can actually step in and realize that we are more than what we've become. But we are looking at a whole society that has had their power literally negated and stripped from them. And it's interesting, like your experience was a very sexual experience with these 3 women. It was a very much like an activation of that energy within you, because that's part of our power base, right? This is part of our vital life force energy that's been shut down by religions and humanity and cultures for thousands of years. And so again, that is opening up in humanity with consciousness and with the integration that we need to get back into our power so that we can physically vibrate with higher frequencies of life force energy, and then tap in and vibrate with different levels of consciousness. And we're just waiting for everyone else to kind of get on this bandwagon of, okay, it's going to take an opening of your energy body, knowing you're more powerful, knowing you're more than what you've become, and being willing to be the explorer and step in, be the pioneer to step into those levels of awareness and consciousness. Now that this is mainstream, this is like, okay, they disclosed, this is real. Yes, the aliens have been here for almost 100 years. We know it's been like thousands and thousands and thousands and millions, right? Yes. So, but again, at least for some of us, we can wrap our head around 100 years more than billions of years or millions of years. So now that that's here, how does this ripple into the consciousness? What do we expect more disclosures to come out? What do you think is going to happen here?
I think this is a step-by-step thing. They're still trying to fight it. That's the thing. David Grush has come out. He said what he said. And now, just in this week, there's been this smear campaign against him. He was a decorated veteran, served in Afghanistan, came back, and like so many others, experienced post-traumatic stress disorder to the point where he has said this publicly, to the point where he was suicidal. And there has been some mainstream media outlets that have gotten this information, and the only way they got this information was from the insiders that are trying to shut this up. So it's so unfortunate because, again, you do not go after someone's mental state. And he said it publicly that when he came back, he went through what he went through, had his time off, and was allowed to come back into the intelligence community. So
Wow.
he's been backed by the highest level of top secret clearances personnel in that arena, and they're still like, I think they're desperate. I think they're really, really desperate to try and shut this up. But it's like Pandora's box. The lid's been open, and once what we can expect from here on in is a little bit more drip, 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 a little bit more disclosures. We're going to go into not that that there's bodies, but we're going to go into what type of beings are here, how long they've been here. And once after disclosure happens, AD, Richard Dolan, he wrote a book called AD, After Disclosure. If anyone is interested in this subject or just getting into this subject, that book is a go-to, and all of Richard Dolan's books, because I believe that once we step into that world of after disclosure, Richard Dolan's books will be in every university around the world.
Chima Master Guide let me know that there'll be a lot more channeling of humans with extraterrestrial information. It's going to become a little bit more easy and open and receptive to go, okay, there's validity to this in some way, so let's see what I'm getting. Because now we're going to have a variety of different avenues to connect with human consciousness. Different perspectives give a different way of viewing things. And so you get enough different races and species and information, you begin to see the pieces being brought together to create the bigger picture, which is what's starting to happen.
Well, I think we've been
Now
helped. Well, again, all this technology that you're talking, spiritual technology that you're talking about, I think it's been taught to us spiritually. It's been downloaded into certain people to get the ideas out, to get the practice out, and to elevate us into another whole society, new society. And I'm excited.
A whole new way of seeing things.
It's just,
yes.
We're not going to just be sitting in front of the TV anymore, and just watching the football or the hockey or whatever. We're going to be we're going to be stepping into a world where we're interacting with these beings on a daily basis, and not just these beings.
Not only that,
they're going to teach us. They're going to teach us how to connect with our loved ones, everyone else on the other side, into the spirit realm, and beyond that, because I think that there are multiple levels of the spirit realm and things even beyond the spirit realm. It's a whole new game. It's a whole new game.
Only what we're aware of. Exactly. Law of equivalence. Yeah. That's why they've been very patient to allow us. If, we're a little slow, but sure. Once we've gotten something that we can kind of hook onto and build from there as a solid base, it's a little bit more open and less fearful. Then we can go, okay, that's pretty solid, so it's not going to just crush and I've got to think that I've got this experience. It's like now they're going to know it's okay to have this experience. Because it's also been shared with me that kind of like we do trades with other countries in products and services and things like that, we're now going to go other worlds, other technology, other materials. What if some of these worlds do have, I don't know, as we perceive it, the diamonds are very valuable, but that they rain down? And it is. It's like, holy crap. It's kind of like here in Arizona. Like, oh, yeah, the cactus. Yeah, that. Right. And people are like, whoa. It's so much, or there are people at the beach like, yeah, there's the beach. Okay, great.
Yeah,
They're so used to it. It's just commonplace. That is the acclimation of humanity. You get enough of that, it becomes commonplace and more interactive with that. Then they can connect with other worlds, open up with the technology, and then you begin to blend. You get on the same channel, so to speak. And that also can tie into the technology that we're working on. What if by doing that, they're able to assist us in some way with other ways of communicating, connecting, not only with other beings, but our loved ones as we perceive it?
Well, look at the work of Mary Rodwell. I don't know if you guys know her work. I had her on. I had her on the show, and she is in my top 5 of people that are just completely full of wisdom.
Cool.
Just her mind is so beautiful, and her spirit is
So what
amazing and
capacity?
so giving. She's wrote a book called The New Human, and she's interviewed so many families whose young children have had these experiences where, again, they wake up in the middle of the night and they're aboard these huge motherships, as you said, the size of planets.
Oh, yes.
And the children are saying that they're learning more on these ships about physics, about science, about spirituality, advanced. I'm talking like otherworldly stuff than they are in in school. That they are in when they go to school. The kids are not tired. They get up, they go to school, but it's like their spirit is being regenerated by these beings. That are visiting
and they're
them
still
during
fresh
the
from
night.
the other side as we perceive it.
Yeah.
So they're more tuned in to go, oh yeah, that one. Yeah, okay. And so now they can start to acclimate that from childhood. Now they've
Yes.
got their whole life to integrate and bring this in. Now
Well,
it's empowerment.
I think that this is going back to the being has a deep understanding that they need to, I don't want to say target, but spiritually influence the young people, because they're going to be the future. They're going to be the ones that are going to step up and
exactly.
open our world to their world.
Yep.
Sometimes you got to have patience for generations to implement and integrate that information, which is what's been happening. They've got a lot of patience. It's like, do. Okay, come on, humans, let's go.
Once disclosure happens, we're going to have all these questions: who we are, where we've come from, how have their involvement affected, not only our Earth but the universe. How many universes are there? What is their understanding of the spirit realm? Where is their understanding
different channel,
of what God,
different frequency.
of what is their understanding of what God is, the Great Spirit, as I like to call it. And I think we're going to get to a point where we're not going to refer to them as aliens anymore. We're going to refer to them as family, because that's what they are.
Brothers
We're
and
just
sisters.
Brothers and
Yeah.
sisters.
That's why everything's relative.
Exactly. That's right. We're all one, and that's the greatest lesson that we're going to learn.
When I have my spiritual experiences and I unify, it is all interconnected. There is no separation with anything, truly, and love, no judgment ever on the universe's part. Every time I unify with the oneness, I don't have all of the regrets that humans have to make choices in life and learn to live with it in different ways. And after many years, I asked my master guide, Chi, I'm like, Chi, how is it that when I unify with the oneness, I don't have all of these regrets that most humans have to make choices and all that good, and I coulda, shoulda, woulda? And he's like, well, Jamie, on a quantum level, all experiences are happening now. All potential outcomes are happening now. Your soul print of consciousness is connected to each and every one of those alternate realities, or it wouldn't be connected. And your ignorance of these alternate realities is no excuse. It is still being registered into your Solodex as an eternal soul print of consciousness, Akashic records, whatever we want to call it. And then you begin to integrate more, because fairly recently I share the fact that just for me, in a brief moment, I was just sitting there. I became everybody I ever interacted with. I felt every single energy exchange and came back to me with, how'd you treat yourself? Like, oh my God, that stuff's real. Moving from, into like, oh, well, in quantum physics, apparently scientific methodology might be validating some of the stuff that we thought was crazy stuff. Now it's starting to go, maybe there's more to it than what I thought. because now people a little bit at a time are going to lose that fear and more receptive of empowerment to go, what else is there?
That's another hope of mine, that since all these disclosures that have been happening in the UFO field, spiritual field, that there are certain personalities that are being pushed forward into the light. And I just hope that once disclosure happens, that recognition is also given to people like you and beings like you, and all the researchers and thank you, all the researchers that have put so much of their heart and their soul into getting disclosure. Like
in
Richard
spite of all the old
Yes.
perspectives,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yes.
And then people go to like the everyday person, goes to get that information to those people like Richard Dolan, Stephen Bassett, Stephen Greer, Linda Moulton Howe, Mary Rodwell, Bob, and even the ones that are not here, that put their heart and soul into this, that they've graduated, as you guys like to say,
Yep.
onto the other side. I know they're here spiritually, but I just, it saddens me a little bit, like people like Bob Dean and Dr. Lear and all these others that have put so much into it that they're not here.
Watch the technology.
Yeah.
We're going to be connecting with our loved ones.
Yeah.
It will be that real to go, holy cow, now we realize there is no death.
Yeah.
It's all but an experience and different. I always say the breath of life, we live our entire life in one breath. When we come in, we breathe in, and when we go out, we breathe out. The trick is to breathe, and we'll live. It's this experience of life to go out of all of the planets, dimensions, and all those universes. We chose this one. Yeah, well, it's, again, the experience of unification. Nothing is separated. It is truly all interconnected in the ocean of consciousness.
What do you see happen, like playing out after disclosure happens?
This is like a droplet of consciousness just to help people understand, okay, this is really this is a real thing, but it's going to get much more real when we're actually seeing ships in the sky, when we're actually making contact. And the potential of this happening is right now, like any moment. I see ships all the time. He sees ships people see ships all the time, but when is it going to be everybody seeing it, because it's just, they're in our sky anyway and they don't have to hide themselves anymore? We have to evolve consciously as much as energetically, and we have to come from a place of love if we really want to make these connections, because they're not going to mess around with us if we are not having love in our hearts. It's not worth it to them. It's almost like it's our job right now as a human race to say it is time. We're going to be bold enough to open our hearts. We're going to be bold enough to work on our own energetic fields. We'll be bold enough to consciously invite them into our space and into our minds and hearts. When enough of us on this planet are bold and brave enough to open and just be loving, then we are going to be more ready to be a part of that galactic family. They're just waiting on us. Time's an illusion. They know it. We know it. It's not about time. It's just about when are we going to be ready to open conscious receptivity. You're right, Jamie.
I think that one of the first things on the agenda, once we have disclosure and then there's the open contact, one of the first things they're going to say is, guys, you got to get rid of your nuclear warfare, because if you want to join us in the stars,
they've been saying that,
and we've had cases like the Maelstrom Air Force case, but this was in the Maelstrom 1967. So 1967, the ships came in and started switching on and off our nuclear warfare. That really woke up our military guys.
Yep.
And I think they were sending a message that, what you're doing here is dangerous. Since, World War One, World War Two, they've been engaging our military on a weekly, daily basis. Alongside David Grush, we had David Fravor and Ryan Graves, who testified that on a daily basis that they were chasing these things, and it's still happening today after they've left. One of the most concerning things is that the people in the military and Navy, Air Force, they're scared to come forward and report their sightings because of fear of losing their job, that they're going to be called crazy. This needs to end, and I'm glad that it was brought up in the congressional hearings that there's going to be systems coming in place where pilots and personnel can come forward and tell their story without fear of losing their job and their livelihood.
Then they began to get a picture of who some of the beings are that are connecting and in what ways and how they're affecting humanity. It can be an amazing experience. I just feel like you're sharing, it's a step-stage process. Too much, too quick, they'll choke on it. It's got to be acclimated. And just to me, anything that's being allowed to be shared is being allowed to be shared. Otherwise, it would not be in the public awareness. That's why I'm like, you only conspiracy nut job till it's validated. I'm sure there's nothing there.
Well, I was gonna talk about the next big disclosure as well. Will be, you touched on it, your experience, and I've heard you talk about it throughout the seasons of your experience when you were a kid, Jamie, with the Jesus and the two UFOs.
Oh yeah.
That when the religious folks get a hold that being is not just part of this world, but other worlds as well. That's going to, that spirit, religiously, spiritually, that's going to shift so many people into a whole new way of thinking. Since I've heard you say this, because I've heard that this being has been part of other worlds and has come here. But the way you said it opened my mind to this possibility, and I started researching into who Jesus was, because I was brought up Catholic when I was a kid. And I sort of stepped away from it because I didn't like the whole religious aspect of it. The rules, stand up, sit down, do this, do that, you're going to hell. What God would allow such a thing, to its children. So I started questioning all this, and I stepped away from religion. And I've also started researching into, I've been reading accounts that this being was popping up in Japan, in India, in Tibet, in America with the American Indians, with the Mayans. And I'm just like, this being is a cosmic traveler. Not only did he, in his time, travel our world completely and interact with our native cultures, but I believe that he was influencing our universe as a whole into...
He's the catalyst of consciousness.
Opening up universal consciousness, spiritual consciousness. That's going to shake our perspective big time.
Yeah.
And understand that all the aliens that we are going to encounter are doing just that as well.
Yes.
They are shaking up our consciousness.
Yes.
And to be shaken up, the willingness, and if I could encourage everyone listening, the willingness to say, yes, I'm ready, the willingness to open and receive love and consciousness. If you have that on the forefront of your heart, you have more opportunities to have cool experiences, to really understand what you are made of, what your potential is, how you are becoming your potential as a human being, or like my mentor used to say, a human becoming. And so really moving into that vibration, because all of our great spiritual leaders that have ever walked the face of this planet have been examples to us to love and to have faith and to open consciously and discover your innate power. And so when we follow along those lines, we are literally going to be vibrating at a higher frequency so that we're more ready for more disclosures, more connections, more understanding of our part in the universe.
That gentleman there used to say, hey, what I do, you can do. And not only that, you can do more.
You could do it better.
Yeah.
Do it better.
What if that faith of the mustard seed is literally just a conscious thought and recognition of creating a whole new reality?
Yeah.
And that from that one seed, you can have an entire world grow, an entire universe.
And that's the thing, going back to these beings like the Buddha, like Jesus and all these beings that came here and taught us such beautiful things. They're not religious people or beings. They're spiritual, highly spiritual beings.
Yeah.
For a religious person, that's going to be very hard to come to deal with.
That's why it's a step stage evolution.
When that comes to light. That
Yeah,
your
we're
Jesus
gonna move.
was not a religious person. He was a spiritual person.
Doing him, man. Yeah, I'm like, whatever. Just our way of seeing that.
Yes.
So it created religion, kind of like Buddhism and many other
Yes,
things.
yeah.
It became, that was our reaction to the information.
Yes.
We want to put some parameters around this, make it as solid so that we can integrate it within humanity. Because
Yes.
if they have a solid, consistent reference, it's a little bit easier to go, that Buddha thing, or that Christian, or the Catholic, or whatever the case is.
To divide and separate as well.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anything, and again, just to me, anything outside of any of these beautiful religions is negated. Spirituality encompasses everything. Going, it's all one, man. I'd be like, saying there is no existence of that. Really? You sure about that?
The only difference between spirituality and religion is an institution and spirituality is not. It's an inward conscious recognition of God or goddess or the great spirit, whatever we like to call, the all that is. And we are all interconnected.
I always love to give that analogy of religion being a fishbowl in the ocean. And you've got like a tiny little fish in the fishbowl. That's religion. And then all the other fish that are outside of the fishbowl in the ocean is spirituality.
And that fishbowl's in the ocean. Right. It's within it. It's all one, man.
It's
right.
all one, yeah. Exactly.
Oh, beautiful.
Put those glass partitions between you and that other reality as we perceive it. Because then you create your own little reality within those limitations of awareness.
Yes.
Now we're starting to see, we're breaking the mold. We're shattering the old perspectives and beginning to see anew. Sometimes we just got to clean off the windows, so to speak. I'm seeing things a little differently. It's a little bit cloudy there for a while. Yeah. Cool. Whatever works for us.
I can't wait for the day.
It's beautiful.
I can't wait for the day.
I know.
It's coming. It's coming.
You can feel it too. You can feel the shifts coming in the air. It's in the air. I just... again, 10 years ago, when I was speaking openly about this to people, and people were so closed off, I'm seeing a real shift, and people are waking up. You can see it everywhere.
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful to watch.
And I share the fact that, and it can make it entertaining. My mom and I, 30-something years ago, wrote The Adventures of Rocco and Tukey, the kids from Mars. And it is about love. It is about traveling. It is about working together with other worlds. And then we have the Infinite Voyager, which is a planetary ship that travels around different galaxies and universes. And then we've kind of gotten into, because just making it entertainment, I created a comic book that we're calling The Intergalactic Adventures. And just real quick, it's about the reptilian race, who's a rapidly growing species. So rapidly, in fact, that they've become planet stealers. They've captured a dwarf star, taken it into the seventh parallel, and are creating their own solar system. So it's that kind of stuff that we have the Intergalactic Federation, the Council, so that it's not only just the galactic, it is the universes.
Yes.
And throughout that, so that we can take people on the adventure, because sometimes they want to experience it without having to go through it. Then it's the vicariousness of, I got a flavor for that. I like that. Okay, I'm open. Or, I don't want it. Whatever the case is. It can now be entertaining and informative. And people will acclimate in their own way, if they choose to go, okay, well, apparently those other people for all those years weren't so crazy. They were just ahead of the game and people didn't understand because they weren't told they're real. Like, okay, now they are.
And of course, for our listeners, we will add a link in the show notes if you want to order your copy of The Adventures of Rocco and Tukey, the Kids from Mars. We have book 1 and book 2. We are going to be book 3 is going to be coming out soon as well.
Yep.
And Robby, thank you so much
you,
for
Robby.
taking the time to be with us today. This has been awesome.
Great conversation.
It's absolutely my pleasure, and it's an honor to be here with you guys here and in this time and space as well. So we're literally witnessing history right now.
I know, isn't it beautiful?
We're creating it.
Yes, that's right. We're creating it. I just want to say, in my own show, I always end with a message of hope. And I'd like to share with your listeners and anyone else who's watching that don't give in to all this fear-based stuff that's happening right now. Have hope in your heart and know that you are loved. You are a cosmic spiritual being, and there are beings and spiritual guides of the highest realms that are here, and they're going to ensure that we go to the stars and beyond. And we have a beautiful future ahead of us. The human race does. There's going to be some hard times, yes. There always has on this earth. But we're going to come out of it, and it's going to be a beautiful future.
It's a great awakening.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you
Definitely.
for sharing that. That's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yes.
Yay. And please tune in to Robby on the Mystic Drop on YouTube, link in the show notes. Thank you again, and have fun with your psychic evolution as you tune into your inner astronaut.
Salute, guys. Thank you.
Salute.